you are doing so many phenomenal things, and I'm gonna need your help. Okay, I'm gonna need your help because I struggle with pronunciation, how we say it. So you got a delicious ice cream pop up. Now I ain't gonna butcher it because I want the good people who watch this to know how to say it. So we're gonna say it on 3.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yes.
Now we can break up the last name, but
I was like, I didn't leave the like descriptor in there. Like, let's start with the first word and move from there.
So please, educate our gamers, our people who are watching. You have an ice cream, delicious. Hopefully, we'll be tasting one of these days.
Yeah.
So please tell us, why did you get into the ice cream game?
Yeah. So it's called Zia's, which is aunt in Italian, like aunt, like not an ant. Someone asked, like I had to clarify it because someone was like the bug, and I was like, oh, I didn't think about that, but like, yeah. And
English language.
Yeah. Understanding. I make pizzelle ice cream sandwiches. So a pizzelle is an Italian cookie. They usually show up at Italian American, like Christmas, holiday, like any birthdays. Like you see them just like scattered amongst like mountains of cookies. Okay. And actually, like I started to make my aunt's recipe, which is kind of where the name derived from, as like a little bit of an honor to her. But I started making pizzelle cookies when I was kind of going through the grieving process, and I was like, oh, I want familiar things. And like I've always had this connection to food and cooking, and I even focus on like my design business on like food and beverage and wellness clients, because there's this like connection to like the table and like wanting to understand someone completely different from you, like, but shared around this experience of eating something delicious. And so it's like I've been making cookies.
Nice. You talk about that because that's the podcast that was started. It's literally that what you described. It's food and culture podcast that was stemmed from sitting around the table talking about food.
Yes.
Don't say was.
Yeah.
It is. It is. It's still there. It's still there. Keep going. I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. And my friend started making ice cream. Like he was experimenting with ice cream in his home, and I had this idea of just like marrying the two together. Like, let's try that out. And it was, as expected, it was delicious. So I was like,
you hear that? The bass in the voice, she's like,
I was
come
like,
by.
This is delicious. And also like just tapping into my heritage felt like a very like personal thing. Like I wanted there to be like a meaning to it. And so, yeah, I just started making them. I'm still making them. I feel like I'm kind of going through the research and development process and learning a lot around like what it means to start a food business. That's a whole nother space that like I don't know anything about, and going through food safety and, you know, forming relationships even in that space. Like people are just so overwhelmingly positive in that space too. Like you could reach out to like, you know, another ice cream restaurant owner, and like they'll just like answer right away and be like, I'm like here to help you, like extending the hand on the other side of the door, right?
I don't ever feel like it's a competition when it comes to food.
No,
it is a true creative space.
Yeah,
they want to see how you can take something and either make it better or give it a different context, and it's like no, please do.
Yeah,
I think that's the one thing about the food space that it's so magnificent, is there's so many ways to cook some similar things, and sometimes it's just a culture twist, sometimes it's a flavor twist profile, sometimes it's the origin of what you're cooking it on. And people are just like, go, yeah, have fun. And
yeah. Or like, I don't know about you guys, but like what was interesting about my upbringing is like recipes would be written, like if they were written down at all, like they just have like a pinch of this, a dash of that, and you're like, what do I do with that? And it's like led by like intuition rather than like this step-by-step process, which I think is good for me, like to get like just loosen up and just like really explore the connection of creating something like physically. Like that's super cool. But also like I think the other thought, my brain was going in two different directions, but I was like, oh, you know, you could have the recipe, right? And like someone else could make it and it won't taste the same. It just never does.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been trying to remake like my nani's chicken cutlets, and like my mom makes them a certain way and like I make them and I'm like, what's wrong? Like what went wrong?
I will 100%.
Very different.
I will 100% stamp you on that, as I'm trying to build my cooking clout myself.
Yeah.
Literally, Mama T's like a dash of this, a pinch of that. And
Yeah.
then, you know, she's like, you know, how to go on Powerpuff Girls, sugar, spice, and everything nice. And I'm just like, how did you do this? And then she's like, chemical X. I was like, damn it, my Mac sucks. So I really appreciate you saying that, because I think, you know, I guess I'm just not so used to hearing, like, I'm glad you asked that. The creative space of like in cooking is so welcoming, because like as someone who's like, I'm just more gonna be a consumer, you know, besides cooking at home, or like I would think that I would think like one shop would beef with another shop being like, nah, this is my block. You can't sell, because that's what it was like with the ice cream truck, man. They were like, hey, this is my radius, because it's going on in New York, but not here or there. They was battling for the turf.
Oh really?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's different though. That's a business selling goods comparative to a chef creating goods.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the toss up with when it comes to the food industry is like, one is the consumer, right? And one is the producer. And the producer, it has all the creativity to come up with michelada ice cream, and you have all these different kinds, right? All these different flavors and things, but when you go to this one spot, there's another spot that's just like it, somewhere down the street, and they're not beefing and saying no, because they're allowing this creator to be creative. And so it's and that's, you know, food is my passion. So when you started talking about food, it touched.
Yeah, I was like, you're telling me about
my
that.
soul a little bit. And it's all about triggering that creativity. And you said you're an Italian. I worked in an Italian restaurant, Italian store / restaurant place in LA for a hot second. Do you know about Colombiana?
No.
So Colombiana is a cake. It's close to panna cotta.
Okay.
So it's similar.
Yeah.
So the Colombiana is just it means dove, I guess, in Italian.
Okay.
And so
She's like, nah.
The 4 years and still.
And no, I'm just curious because they were putting me up on game in this Italian place, and I didn't know nothing about it. I'm just serving this cake.
Yeah.
And they're like talking about it, like, oh, this is like a panna cake, and I was like, oh yeah. But to me, it goes back to what we're talking about when it comes to this creativity. It's similar to a cake in Russian, similar to a cake in Ukraine, similar to cake in Switzerland, similar to a cake in France, similar to a cake in like Sweden, similar to a cake in South America. And I'm just like, a lot of these things are the same. They're just culturally a little bit different. And I think that goes back to just a representation of us, right? Like, a lot of us are the same, but culturally just a little bit different. And I think that's the beauty of cooking, to be honest. So
Yeah, just like what is the like slightly different take on that same thing. Or even just, that's like fascinating too, the fact that like it's a common through line across different cuisines. That's super cool.
And there's plenty of dishes. I think there's plenty of dishes out there that cross cultural lines, that we don't even recognize until you've had it in these different settings. And you're like, oh wait, isn't that this? And you're like, wait, yeah, wait, hold up, and then it begins to start making sense. And
yeah.
Oh
no, I was gonna even say like, no, keep going. I was like,
sure?
I lost the thought. Yeah, it was like, it'll come back someday.
okay. So a couple questions, couple more, just to wind this down, because we're gonna tap out in a second. But one of the things to kind of like formulate and to really like put a nice little cherry on this